topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good morning, Florida. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. We have got an incredible show for you today, especially with everything that's going on. The timing could not be better. Let's get to it right away. Let me welcome Ray Ferrara, Provice Management Group. Good morning, Ray.
Good morning. Happy Monday to you, and happy St. Patty's Day to you, laddie.
I knew you were going to do that. I knew it. So you're wearing your green today. You show off.
I am. You know, I'm Italian, but you got to be Irish for one day every year.
Yeah, I hear you. Ray, there is so much going on in the news about the economy. I don't even know where to start, but first of all, tell people about Provice Management Group.
Thanks, Steve. Provice Management Group has two offices, one in Clearwater, which is our main office, Florida, and Tampa, Florida. We are serving about 1,100 clients in over 30 states. Managing somewhere around $2 billion with the volatility in the market, maybe a little bit less than that right now. But we are a financial planning firm first and foremost, and an investment management firm second. We believe that financial planning is the key to financial success or better financial success, and that investments, insurance, education planning, retirement planning, estate planning, all of those various aspects are subsets of a financial plan, and that with a well-written financial plan, that your odds of success are greater than without a plan. We have 13 planners that are part of our firm. We work at a fiduciary standard of care and have since the late 80s. When it was more than just fashionable. In fact, it was very unique way back then, some 30 some years ago, actually more than that, 35 years ago. So we always welcome new folks to our family of clients. And the best way to get started with us is to take advantage of our complimentary 1-hour consultation, which can be done in either of our two offices or by Zoom. So no matter where you are in Florida, for that matter, across the United States, we would be more than delighted to sit down and learn more about you and for you to learn more about us. And to do that, all you have to do is call us at 727-441-9022. That's 727-441-9022. And we will be quite happy to have you introduce yourself to us.
Well, I want to tell you, Ray, first we got a text right before the show from a listener in St. Pete saying they've been listening to you for the last couple of years and I really appreciate your information. I really trust you, Ray, and your knowledge. Can you please explain, are tariffs a tax, and what is a tariff?
Well,
it's called, Ray.
So a tariff is essentially a tax on imported goods that come from other countries. And although it isn't referred to as a tax per se, it is a tax. And the interesting part of all of this is tariffs are not new. In fact, one of the very first acts of Congress back in 1789, after Congress was actually formed following our Constitution, was a tariff to protect our manufacturers here in the United States and our agricultural farmers. And it was a major source of revenue for the country, that all of the goods that would come in from other countries would have this tariff, AKA a tax, placed on it. And that's how we funded the government for a long time. Alexander Hamilton was a strong advocate for tariff. And what he believed in was basically a reciprocal tariff. And that is to say that if you had a 10% tariff on our goods, then we would have a 10% tariff on your goods. Fast forward to the early 1900s, there was a bill that was passed that did two things. The first was it significantly reduced tariffs and our reliance on tariffs. And one has to then wonder how in the world would the government pay for stuff if it wasn't collecting these tariffs? Well, it's what we call an income tax today, that Congress decided to tax our income. And then following the First World War, tariffs were reinstituted. And then in 1930, the Smoot-Hawley bill was passed, which many believe exacerbated the Great Depression and carried it on for much longer than it needed to be. And it wasn't until after the World War II that the United States adopted what they and I will refer to as free trade, and including eventually the setup of the World Trade Organization. And so tariffs have come and gone up and down over the years. And now President Trump is trying to use them, not as, I don't believe, as something that will be permanent, but something that will be primarily a negotiating tool. The unfortunate part is that it raises the price of goods that we have in this country, which means that helps exacerbate inflation. And yes, it's only a one-time hit, but it often is a permanent hit, because once prices have been raised, there is a tendency for them not to come back down. And in fact, just this morning, America's aluminum manufacturers, instead of keeping their price below the aluminum coming out of Canada with the tariff, raised their prices to match the prices that are now coming out of Canada. So not only does it apply on the goods that are coming into our country, but now it's raising the price of even those things which we are manufacturing here in this country, which simply says more profits for everybody except the consumer.
We always get stuck, don't we?
We do indeed.
Paul in Clearwater wants to know, President Trump is using these tariffs right and left. It seems like kind of like a willy-nilly way of approaching the issue. As a result, markets are very volatile right now. What should I do since I'm only a few years away from retirement? Good question.
Well, it's hard for me to give personalized advice here on the show, but let me try to give you a few pointers. The first thing is if you've been taking a long-term view of your investment horizon, then continue. Yes, you're about to approach retirement, and yes, you're rightly to be concerned about it going down just as you go into retirement. But you also, assuming that you have good health and good genes, will find yourself perhaps living another 20 or 30 years past that date of retirement. And if you're married and both of you are age 65, one of you is likely to live into your early 90s. So you still have to maintain a long-term horizon. Hopefully you are well diversified. If you are owning all of the magnificent 7 or 10 or whatever they are today, or you're a Bitcoin holder, you're going to have a wild ride up and down in a growth portfolio. So maybe you want to consider looking more at some dividend-paying stocks to kind of soften the volatility. Don't want to mention any particular companies, but there's a lot of good companies out there with dividend yields of roughly 3% that we think are good, and some that are higher. But just keep in mind that any company that has a higher dividend than, say, 4%, there's a reason for it, and that means there's a little more risk in it. But still, you have the cash flow from those stocks to continue to provide you with income even when the market is going down. And the key is to not panic during these volatile times. Be patient. The market is, as I've described on numerous occasions on the show, is like an investor walking up a flight of stairs with a yo-yo. We all have a tendency to follow the yo-yo and not the fact that the man is walking up the flight of stairs. So hang in there. The only other suggestion I would make to you is try to have at least 1 year's worth of income in cash and in short-term bonds, so that if there is a dip in the market once you retire, you can fall back on using that cash and the short-term bonds and not have to sell while the market is down. I'd also say, Steve, that we have to understand, you've heard me say over and over for the last year, the market is ahead of itself. The market is ahead of itself. The market is really up because of a handful of companies. We haven't had a correction in the market since September or October of 2023. A correction is when the market goes down by 10% or more. They are a common part of a healthy stock market. They make everybody stop and reassess. And we are still sticking by our original forecast that the markets will finish up in the single digits this year. But that's about all investors can expect. But that'll still be a very handy return coming off of 2 years of more than 20%. So hang in there, think long term.
Ray, Paul in Tampa wants to know, do you feel, Ray, that there's a recession around the corner?
Is there a recession around the corner? Absolutely, but it's a long road to get to the corner. We have not solved the problem of having recessions from time to time in this country. We do not see a recession that is going to occur here in the United States. We still have significant amount of growth that's occurring. It's slower than it's been, but it's still growth. And it is unlikely that we will see a recession in the current year. Having said that, really stay in place throughout the entire year, then there is a big problem that they could help to cause a recession. But if it's around the corner, I just don't know where the corner is, but it's not should not occur during
Did we lose Ray?
No, he's here.
Okay. Maybe he froze. Okay. Ray, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Yes, sir.
Okay. So last
Can
week,
you hear me,
Congress
Steve?
now I can hear you now.
Sorry.
Last week, Congress passed another continuing resolution to keep the government open. Ray, it just seems like every time we just keep kicking the can down the road. But isn't the debt ceiling looming with the cap at around 32 trillion? What are the odds on government shutdown and the effect it's going to have on the markets if that happens? Because isn't the next one in September?
Actually, Steve, it will probably occur earlier than that. The current estimate is that probably in sometime or July, the Treasury Department will run out of what's called extraordinary measures to force them to be able to not spend any more money. The reality of it is we've already exceeded the debt ceiling, which is $32 trillion. But by shuffling money around, delaying payments to some until revenues come in, shifting some money from Peter to pay Paul, they'll be able to keep the government funded at least through probably July, maybe into August. And let's be clear, there's a difference between what happened in Congress last week and the debt ceiling. What the Congress did last week was to pass a continuing resolution that basically said we're going to fund the government from now until the end of the fiscal year, or I guess it was 6 months. So that's going to be just about the end of the fiscal year, because the government's financial year starts October 1 every year. And so that's what they did last week. The debt ceiling is how much money can we borrow legally that is authorized by Congress in order to actually pay all those bills that we've agreed and all that money we've agreed to spend over the next six months. So just because they passed a budget doesn't mean that we are without a government shutdown potentially this year. So there'll be a second battle in Congress. And actually, I would say that there's a greater chance of a government shutdown over the debt ceiling than there was over the continuing resolution. And the reason is the president and Speaker Johnson were both able to keep the deficit hawks, Republican deficit hawks, in the House in line with what the president wanted. But when it comes to raising the debt ceiling, my fear is that handful of Republican deficit hawks who have a lot of good ideas are going to hold things up, and we could see a government shutdown. And if that happens, it's never a good thing. Although some people always think it's a good thing if the government can shut down, it's not a good thing for our economy at the end of the day. But I do fear that could occur during July or August of this year.
Why is it taking so long for Congress to pass this new tax bill? And what happens if they don't pass it, Ray?
So let's take the first part of your question. Why does it take so long? Part of it leads back to what I was just talking about, and that's getting every Republican on board to support it. Because the Republicans only have a couple of votes majority, they literally have to keep everybody in line so that they can pass the bill. And Speaker Johnson has a lot of balls in the air and the juggling that he has to do to not drop one. And it's going to take him at least another 6 to 8 weeks to get all of that lined up. You would think that with the Republicans in control of both houses of Congress and with the White House, that this ought to be a slam dunk, but it's not because of the competing forces within the Republican Party. To your second question, what happens if they don't come up with something? Well, it's already law that at the end of this year, the 2017 Tax Act ends, and we will go back to much higher income taxes than we had. We'll go back to significantly lower exemptions for estate planning. It will be a massive tax increase that will occur for all Americans across the board. No one is going to escape it unless they don't pay any taxes at all. And it would, as we were talking earlier about a recession, that could absolutely positively be the start of much slower growth, because consumers will have less money to spend. They're giving it to the government, and they won't be able to continue to support the economy, which could exacerbate the opportunity for a recession to occur. So not a good thing in the slightest to have the government shut down because we weren't able to raise the debt ceiling.
Ray, we got less than a minute. Tell people how they can reach you.
You can reach us at 727-441-9022, 727-441-9022. We offer everyone a complimentary 1-hour consultation in our Clearwater or Tampa office, or by Zoom if you prefer. Let's get a chance to get to know each other. And if you want to learn a little bit more about us before giving us a call, please go to our website, provise.com. That's PROVISE.com. Love to have you stop in, visit with us, and see if there's an opportunity for us to help you. And if not, maybe we can refer you to where you can get the help that you need.
Ray, you're the best. We'll see you next week. 2 new live shows next month. Thanks, Ray.
You all take care. Have a wonderful St. Patty's Day.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.